You've seen so many how much do you need in SCHD to retire videos. And as I have outlined in the previous video, many of these videos are lying to you by giving you very false expectations, as I showed in the last video, as they overestimate the dividend growth, giving you a very false picture. From only certain YouTubers that would be saying SCHD would be paying a 10% dividend yield and your yield on cost would be over 140%. Yeah, right. So let's go over a more realistic expectation of how much you need in SCHD to actually retire. But as usual, none of this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor.
Knowledge.
So let's start with our end goal, and we're going to work backwards from there in this video. How much do you need to retire is kind of an interesting question, because this answer will vary for many people. But in this video, let's just shoot for $50K per year from dividend payments to retire. In your retirement, hopefully the mortgage is paid off, and hopefully you have no debt unlike most Americans. But you still want to do some traveling, you want to eat out, you want to take care of your health, you want to be generous to others, but you still might have some medical bills. So I think $50K will give you a decent income for all that, assuming you have no debt and your mortgage is paid off. You don't want to be penny pinching in your retirement and adding extra stress. I think $50K would accomplish this for most people if you're living a normal life. So let's make some ground rules. We want $50K worth of value in 30 years from now, because $50K in the future in 2054 is worth $23,000, almost $24,000 in today money. So we don't want $50,000 in dividends in the future because inflation is going to erode this away. So we're going to need a lot more than $50,000. And this is only assuming with a 2.5% cumulative inflation rate, which might be conservative considering 2022 had an inflation rate of 8%. So in order to have $50,000 worth of purchasing power in 30 years, we need a lot more money. We're going to need about $105,000 in dividend income in 2054. So we need to over double the dividend amounts for our future self to get $50,000 worth of purchasing power. Yikes. Now we have to ask ourselves, what is the average growth for SCHD since it's an inception? So we go to Portfolio Visualizer, as you guys have seen me use this a million times. Type in SCHD, and we'll do our portfolio one with 100%, but we're not going to reinvest the dividends because we want to just see the growth rate of the share price. And let's check this out over since its inception. And when we look, the compound annual growth rate is 9.25% without dividends reinvested. This is strictly the share price appreciation. So we know how much the share price appreciates. And for SCHD, the dividend, we can see on Seeking Alpha, the year-end yield typically stays between 3 and 4%. This is on average. If you remember in the previous video, which you can watch right here, people tend to assume a crazy dividend growth, but with over 10 years of data, we can see the dividend year-end yield stays between 3 and 4% on average. It stays within this range. You're not going to get a 10% dividend yield out of SCHD. So if we go on this calculator and mess with our settings, we're not going to annually contribute anymore. Let's consider a dividend tax rate. And let's say our annual dividend is 3.49, somewhere in the middle between all these, and that is the latest one. And let's do our compound annual growth rate, which is 9.25%. So let's consider that as our annual share price appreciation. But if we match the annual dividend amount increase with the annual share price appreciation, it is going to stay as the same 3.49% annual dividend yield. So let's shoot for that. And we already know 50K isn't going to cut it as outlined in the other SCH video. So let's bump up to like 75K. What happens if we plop $75,000 starting today with this type of yield? And the results are very interesting, guys, because we have a large ending portfolio balance and a great average annual return and a good annual dividend income. If we scroll down, this is our yield, and this is our yield on cost column. So keep that in mind. So our yield will stay between 3 and 4%, which we've seen historically right here on Seeking Alpha. But by the end, we're going to get an annual dividend of $74,000, and let's say this is when we want to retire. Now, it's close to our 105, but remember, we need $105,000 to account for the inflated increase. In the future, if we had $74,000, that'd really be $35,000 in today money. So we need to work up a little higher than that. So what if we did, instead of 75, what if we change this to $100,000? And let's look at our annual dividend, and we're a lot closer, 98. So we're really close to the $105,000 in future money that we will need. So we're so close. All right, so $100,000 wasn't enough. Let's bump it up to 110 and see what we get. $110,000. You see with $110,000, we get over $108,000 in annual dividends, which is more than our 105 that we actually originally needed. So we're getting a little bit extra with $110,000. If we're looking for an exact amount, it's about $108,000, which will get us really close to that 105. And all these dividend guys is still with the 3.49% yield with a really good yield on costs. Guys, we can actually double check this by using the inflation adjusted return from SCHD, which is 6.51%. So if instead of needing $105,000 in inflation, what if we already included the inflation in our inflation adjusted compound annual growth rate? So if we put 6.51 instead, this is the inflation adjusted now, and we calculate 30 years with $108,000, you can see we'll get about $52,000 worth of income, and this is the inflation adjusted return. So that's really good. So in 30 years, with $108,000 invested, this is when you'll actually have over $50,000 worth of dividend income, which is really awesome. So it seems you will need over $100,000 in SCHD with our inflation calculator and using the inflation adjusted compound annual growth rate to actually get a large dividend over $50,000. So yes, if we continue to get performance in SCHD for the next 30 years, we can use it as a retirement vehicle with only $108,000 invested for over $50,000 dividend income, which really isn't a bad price to pay for no portfolio management, no worries about withdrawals, you just get the dividends or really anything else. It's super simple. But in my mind, for me, at not even 30 yet, it still makes more sense to me to buy things focused on growth, to endure the volatility, and to put my money in SCHD since it will grow faster. And if you're wondering how to do that, I did find the perfect portfolio for this that is focused around SCHD, but is just a little degenerate utilizing TQQQ. And the backtesting results are amazing. If you want the path to quick retirement, check out that video right here. Peace.